Talking wrestling and telling it like it is.
I gotta be honest, man. I'm kind of getting over Kevin Owens, over in a bad way.
Interviews.
Sitting alongside the hardcore legend, Mick Foley. Well, once again, I'm joined by WWE superstar Adam Rhodes. Nick and Alfred are here with WWE superstar, the show-off Dolph Ziggler.
No fanboy bullshit.
This is one of those matches where it just shows how predictable the WWE is.
This is Wrestling Obsession Radio.
Hey, welcome into another edition of Wrestling Obsession Radio. My name's Nick. This is my podcast. Joining me along again this week is Alfred. How are you doing, man?
Good, man. How's it?
It's going pretty well. So a lot has happened in just a short amount of time. I feel like I always say that when we start the podcast, but
of course,
yeah. But this time we did a podcast right before WWE Extreme Rules. Extreme Rules was last night, and in the meantime, between the two podcasts, there's been a couple of releases from the WWE as well. So real quick, let's just knock out Extreme Rules, and then we'll get on to the releases, the newest round of releases from the WWE, some of which were asked for, some of which everyone saw coming. Right. So do you want to talk about Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler, or should we skip it?
I mean, that was essentially a pre-show match. For some reason, Baron Corbin has this thing where he'll do no disqualification matches, and then there won't really be any weapons. Like, I believe the most illegal thing he did was a low blow.
Right.
But besides that, I mean, hopefully it's the end of the feud.
Yeah, geez, I hope so too. And it's funny, if you look at the still picture of the low blow, it almost looks like Dolph Ziggler's holding his arm there, and Ziggler's pooping on what's his name?
Oh, that's funny.
He's got this Corbin's got this look of disgust on his face. It's pretty funny. Yes, that's pretty much all I had to say about that match too. So moving on to the start of the show, which is, the Usos versus the Club. And this match, it was okay. I mean, it was pretty good, I guess. I'm not an Usos fan. I thought it was an interesting way to start off the pay-per-view. I figured this would be a card lower, or a match lower down the card, but what were your thoughts?
I think the thing that really hurt the match is that we've seen some form of the Usos versus the Club in like the past 8 WWE shows. I mean, obviously neither of us and pretty much nobody else in the world watches SmackDown, but between 6-man tags and, tag matches, it seemed like they've pretty much done all they can do. And really the only thing they had left to do was a tornado tag match. So all things considered, it seemed like a pretty good match.
Yeah, it's another one of those things where, they made this match, and then just like you said, we've seen it over and over and over again. And there was nothing special about this except that it was legal for all 4 men to be in the ring at one time. But woohoo, we see that anyway. So
I will give them, the benefit of the doubt. I don't remember the last time we saw a tornado tag match.
No, me neither. I mean, at least it was a different kind of match.
Yeah.
But, I mean, still, we've seen, it's just another incarnation of the same thing we've seen over and over again since the Club debuted. But, I guess it was good enough. The Usos got booed a lot, which I thought was pretty good. I'm a fan of booing them and anything else related to Roman Reigns. So that's always good. The next match, we saw Rusev with Lana versus Kalisto for the U.S. Championship. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Lana in her new outfits.
Really?
Yeah, to me, I think she looked way better as the Ravishing Russian, all in red and her hair up and everything.
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm not saying she's ugly, but I'm just saying I thought she looked better before. And I also liked when she did the whole, Rusev, crush, kind of thing. I thought that was always good. What'd you think of this match?
Well, I want to start off. I don't know if you watched the pre-show. I mean, I guess you did with. Oh, really? You didn't watch Corbin? All right.
No, God, no.
Well, the one thing I didn't like was they did kind of a social media lounge thing they do, and one of the things they did was they had Rusev and Lana, and they asked him a bunch of Twitter questions. I think it's actually a fake segment. I think someone actually went online and said, hey, nobody is actually posting these on Twitter. But anyway, they did that. And for some reason, it seemed like Rusev left his accent at home. I mean, he sounded just like, I think the dude's actually from Jersey. He sounded just like a Jersey boy who maybe took a summer-long trip to Bulgaria. So that kind of hurt his believability for me. But the one thing I always get worried about, especially when they spend a year-long building up this monster character, ironically, usually to get beat off by John Cena, is once he loses, he's usually never a monster again. I mean, you see that with Ryback, you see that with Tensai, and I thought that was going to be the case with Rusev again. That, all right, well, Rusev's never really going to be this huge monster guy just because he's lost before. You've seen it. It's really not a big deal. So I'm pretty glad they, they actually built him back up to be this monster character again.
Yeah, I feel like they could have built him up a little bit more believable way, and just in my mind, all they had to do was give him Lana back and just say, have Lana start ordering him around again and him killing people, and all that they needed to do then was for her just to say, without me, Rusev is nothing. I control, the Bulgarian brute or whatever, and then it's all fixed. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I agree with you. I do like that they've got him back to being a monster again. And he had the perfect opponent for that in Kalisto, because man, he really looked strong against Kalisto. I mean, he was throwing him around like he was a ragdoll, when I guess you're as strong as Rusev is. Little Kalisto is pretty much a ragdoll. But I thought it was a pretty good match, and man, the accolade at the end of the match, holy smokes!
Oh yeah,
wow,
yeah. Me and my buddies, we actually lost our mind. We're like, oh wow. I never checked this online afterward. Was Kalisto actually hurt?
I don't think so. I think it was part of the match. Them holding Rusev back, because they would have done the X and they would have literally surrounded Kalisto and not let Rusev get to him, and Rusev wouldn't have gone after him if he claimed to be hurt anyway. Right. So I don't think he was actually hurt, but it was kind of weird though at the end of that match, because they were holding Rusev back from getting to his injured opponent, but that's the whole point of supposedly a match, right? You injure your opponent, you submit him or pin him 1, 2, 3, and it's over. But they were holding him back from doing that. So I thought that was a little weird, a little screwy that they would try to hold him back. But man, if people would apply their submission holds the way Rusev does, it'd be way more believable and way easier to accept somebody tapping out.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I was a little worried that they would go with the whole worked shoot angle, especially since we're only 30 days removed from Enzo legit being hurt. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess that lends a bit of credibility to it. But yeah, I just felt like Kalisto's reign was kind of underwhelming, I guess. Yeah,
it was forced. I mean, he's a little guy. They're trying to make him into the new Rey Mysterio, and there was something special about Rey Mysterio. Number one, he didn't botch moves constantly. I mean, did you see the Hurricane Rana last night where Kalisto basically just face-planted Rusev into the mat?
No, that's usually how that move works. There were no botches last night.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that's how the Spike Hurricane Rana normally works. And I will give Kalisto this. He tends to not botch a lot of moves. He's usually a pretty clean wrestler.
No, you're crazy.
Yeah, no. Believe me. He's usually... Compared to Sin Cara.
Well, we didn't say... We're just talking about him alone, though.
Well, even him alone. I mean, there was a sequence back in Payback where Ryback had to catch him. But all in all, he's a pretty clean worker. Especially with the amount of stuff he does. I mean, he does go for a very high risk offense.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. But it sure seems like he botches more than most. Although I guess to your point, he does do a lot more crazy stuff.
Yeah,
compared to other people. But still, if you can't do it, don't do it. All right. Well, I'm glad Rusev won. I'm interested to see if they get him back on a hot streak before Cena comes back. I guess there's only 1 week for that, but
right.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with him from here. Moving on to New Day, which was Big E and Xavier Woods. And I think Kofi was the one who actually won the titles with Big E. I don't remember exactly, but either way, it was Big E and Xavier Woods versus the Vaudevillains. It was a short match, the shortest match on the card. New Day retained the titles, and at the beginning of the match, Xavier Woods was he was giving out his Twitter handle and saying, "Ladies, my time machine is broken. If you want to reach out to me, my DMs are still open." And it was funny. Big E tried to shut him down a little bit, and he was like, "Whoa, man, let me do it. Let me give it out."
Yeah, that was a little bit of a weird promo, right?
It really was.
Did it kind of seem like they were somewhat hinting at the very early rumblings of a breakup?
I didn't consider that until actually when I was just recapping what happened. But even Big E being so adamant against it being that the refrigerator box was just a refrigerator box and not a time machine. And then this thing last night, it almost seems like they're laying the groundwork for Big E to go the "I want to be taken more seriously" route. Yeah,
that's what I was starting to sense.
Yeah, which if it happens, it happens. I hope it doesn't happen, but I mean, they've been a team for almost 2 years now, right?
Yeah, I believe at least a year. I think this was their first WrestleMania where they actually teamed together.
Well, they've been tag champions for 200-something days, I think.
Yeah.
Either way, they've been a team for over a year now, and it's really hot, so why not break it up in WWE logic?
Yeah, no kidding.
So hopefully it's not the beginning of that. It wouldn't surprise me if they go the route of they tease that they're going to break up, and then just like, DX, when they teased they were going to break up, they came out and China Mooned everybody. Wouldn't surprise me if they do something like that, where they tease a breakup and then they come out and they touch unicorn horns or whatever they call it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Big E playing the serious guy, I guess that is a new wrinkle in their comedy.
Which I thought it was funny. I can
roll with that. Yeah, no, I mean, I enjoyed it. When it comes to the match itself, and obviously you have this sentiment all the time, but I especially felt within this show, there were too many kickouts of, we call them finishing moves. I think WWE has gone away from their official finishing moves. They go with signature moves now. But there were just too many kickouts on this show.
Yep, there definitely were.
There were several tag team tandem moves, especially in this match, where, the Vaudevillains, who are a specialized tag team, and I think really their main moves are tag team moves. You have Xavier Woods, who is pretty much well known as the weakest member of the team, kicking out.
Yeah, I was surprised he kicked out of that move. I listened to a couple other podcasts, and every other podcast I listened to has pointed this out with the Vaudevillains. So they're fairly new. They already have lost the titles, or lost their title shot. They already have had their finishing maneuver kicked out. So where do they go from here?
Well, I think the easy solution is, put them back again with
Big Cass and Enzo. Yeah, but as a team, are they automatically now down to where like Los Matadores and the Shining Stars should be? Because they're so new, they didn't have a chance to get over, and they've already lost.
Yeah, WWE has this horrible problem where for some reason they don't like to have a mid-card for any of their divisions. So essentially, if you're not, going for a title, especially if you're a tag team or you're in the women's division, they kind of just tend to forget about you.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they have enough continuity, or they keep enough continuity in mind to where they put them back with Enzo and Cass, and maybe build those two guys up for the next 2-3 months. And then, maybe when it comes to be SummerSlam or something like that, put them in a big, 4-way tag match.
Mm-hmm. Well, New Day retains. We'll see what they do tonight on Raw. Again, we're recording this Monday at 6:00. It's before Monday Night Raw, so we don't know what's happened yet, but we just wanted to get in a quick review podcast before Monday Night Raw happens, so we don't have to cram it all into one. The next match was The Miz with Maurice versus Cesaro versus Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. And this match did not disappoint.
Nope.
It pretty much, everyone expected it to be a high spot fest, and that's kind of what it was. And it was very entertaining. Those people that like wrestling psychology and more traditional stuff probably hated this match, but for the rest of us who knew what it was going to be going in, I believe we were all satisfied with this match. And one thing I thought that was cool is that Sami Zayn at one point had Cesaro covered, and actually it's the move that Cesaro was pinned off of. And as Sami Zayn was pinning him, Kevin Owens pulled him off, and Sami Zayn, after being pulled off of Cesaro, was outside the ring. He looked back at Cesaro in the ring on his back, and then he went and attacked Kevin Owens. So I think it was cool that they showed like their hatred is so deep that they were Sami Zayn's willing to forego possibly winning a title to go after Kevin Owens.
Right.
I thought that was a really cool moment in this pay-per-view because it made sense to me. We've always been saying, I don't know if we've always been saying, but a lot of people say, and I've thought, and you may have as well, that if there's such heat with some people, are they ever going to, let that get in the way of a good decision? And it finally happened.
Right. This was also a little bit of the, maybe we're kicking out of too many moves.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Category. But I felt like this match was probably one of the best ways to showcase false finishes. I mean, there were at least 3 or 4 sequences where me and my friends were looking at each other, were like, how is this going to end? Like, these guys are not going to let this match end.
Yeah, I think there were 5 false finishes in this match from what I heard somebody say, but you then have to add in all the times the count was interrupted by somebody else. So when you add those in, it was probably at least 10 pinfalls that almost won.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, these 4 guys knew, when to pick their spots. I thought Maurice was used about as well as you can use a female manager in this situation. There's the perfect balance of, emotion and storyline heat.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like I said, I knew it was going to be the best match on the card, and I don't think you can find anyone that's going to say otherwise.
Yeah, it was definitely very entertaining, and I'm okay with The Miz retaining the title, because I don't think Sami Zayn deserves it yet. I kind of like Kevin Owens without a title because it just makes him, I don't know, it seems to play into his character a little bit more. Cesaro chasing a title is good, and The Miz with a title I think is funny. So I'm okay with the way that match ended up. Moving on to Dean Ambrose versus Chris Jericho in an Asylum match. If you had to rate this out of 5, what would you give this match? 5 being good.
3.5.
Oh, God, dude, I'd give it like a 2.
Okay, well, I went back and forth on this match. What didn't you like about the match?
Well, number 1, the pace. It was way too slow. Way too slow. I mean, it felt like it was an hour long. I understand. I think I understand the concept, and I don't think it's a bad concept. But it just took so long for anything to happen. I mean, it was 26 and a half minutes long. I mean, that is
apparently the backstory there, which I didn't find out until about an hour or 2 ago. There's a segment that was cut out, and that's why this match got a full 10 minutes more than it probably was scheduled to, and it should have. I mean, I was thinking right at the end, I was like, yeah, this match went on a little too long.
Yeah, if you packed all that if you packed everything that happened in the 26 minutes into 16 minutes, it'd be a different story.
Yeah.
They probably actually would have had to stop doing some stuff. They would have left some stuff out just to make it work. But I mean, it just dragged on and on and on and on. But I will say that the end, I am 1,000% shocked that Chris Jericho hit Dean Ambrose in the back and in the stomach with the barbed wire 2x4. And I'm even more surprised they used the thumbtacks.
Yeah, the thumbtacks was a good touch. I will say that they did have to call a lot of things on the fly because they did extend their match by 75%.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember watching it, I was like, man, this is weird. I get it's the first Asylum match, but are they really just trying to make sure they get everything in? Or it did feel a little weirdly paced. I did think, especially once we got to this part of the night, that the crowd was kind of shit.
Oh, they were dead. I mean, well, think about what happened before. You had 18 minutes and 18 seconds of Fatal 4-Way, and every single second down to the very end was exciting, know? And then you go straight into a very slow-paced 26.5-minute match, and I don't blame the crowd for being a little bit dead. I mean, not to mention, start from the top, the club versus the Usos. People were pretty into that, especially against the Usos.
Fair enough.
Rusev versus Kalisto. People were pretty into that as well because Rusev was just destroying Kalisto for most of that and almost broke him in half. The New Day had people going. And then you had the Fatal 4-Way, and then everything comes to a screeching halt for the Asylum match. So, I mean, especially after 18 minutes of going nuts, it's no surprise to me that people were a little low. I don't know why they didn't do the Divas match or Women's Championship match there and move the Asylum match, but hey, they made the decision. And I think also,
I mean, they probably wanted to make sure they definitely had a cool down match before the main event, so that makes sense.
And also, I think people just don't care who wins the Dean Ambrose Jericho match because they've already wrestled a couple of times, and it doesn't matter who wins.
No, I will say the crowd was very, very behind Dean Ambrose. I mean, I think he's probably one of the top 2 baby faces on the card, so I wouldn't agree with that point.
Well, I don't mean that they don't care about either one of them. I just mean they don't care who wins the match. Like, it doesn't do anything. They've traded wins this far. What's the difference if one goes up 2 to not 2 wins in a row?
Yeah, well, I will give them credit. I thought this was a very creative match. This probably went as well as any cage match can go because it's been overdone over the years that everything you can really do, pardon the pun, within the confines of the cage has already been done.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like they did put a pretty entertaining spin on it. I just can't help but think it's like, man, even if you find out at the top of the show that we have an extra 10 minutes we have to do with something, you can't go back to the old days and be like, hey, guess what? Now we have a new, exhibition match with, let's say, Apollo Crews, who we haven't seen on TV in a while, or, we're not going to give Golden Truth a chance, or I have no idea what got cut, but.
Well, and you have to assume they had a full roster there. Everyone was probably there. Move Corbin and Ziggler to the main card and, put something else on the pre-card, on the pre-show. I mean,
they had Big Cass do a little segment with the Dudleys.
Yeah.
So that helped. But, yeah, it felt weird.
Yep, definitely did. Moving on to Charlotte and Natalya, who gives a crap. Roman Reigns versus AJ Styles, 22-minute match. It had some good violence in it. It had a lot of finishing moves that were kicked out of, and then it all ended with a spear.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was it kept my interest. But also, everything was getting kicked out of.
Yeah, and they did some things like throwing him onto the pre-show table.
That was cool.
Flipping AJ Styles onto a table from the ground and it breaking without moving the monitors or anything. I mean, like, they did some innovative ways to put people through tables and some different stuff. And I mean, look, I'll give Roman Reigns credit. He went out there and laid it all out there, as well as AJ and, the Usos and the club for that matter when they came out. But I still can't do Roman Reigns as the champion. I hate it so much. But then the WWE savior came back.
Right.
Seth Rollins comes out at the end of the match, kicks him in the gut, pedigree to Roman Reigns, and off it goes to darkness. And now we're left wondering what's going to happen tonight on Raw.
Yeah, I mean that was a pretty awesome way to end the show.
Yes.
I'm a little worried about what's next for AJ Styles. There weren't a lot of. Maybe he goes up against Ambrose moving forward. I'm a little surprised they didn't advertise Rollins' return like they did with Cena.
Yeah,
I mean, Cena's coming back next week.
I am too, but I'm excited for Seth Rollins to be back. I am so excited. I would like to see Seth Rollins and AJ Styles get put in a program together, because the two of them, could you imagine the two of those guys wrestling each other?
That would be awesome.
Yeah, with how good they are, holy cow. That'd be incredible. So I don't know what's next for AJ Styles, though. It's probably going to be like a faction thing, the club versus the Wyatts, or the remaining social outcasts. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah. So overall, I thought Extreme Rules was better than I expected it to be. I give the pay-per-view as a whole probably a 3.5 out of 5, maybe.
Yeah, that's about fair. That's surprising me saying that about you, but yeah, that is surprisingly fair.
Yeah, I mean, it had a couple of twists and turns that I liked, and it was very predictable as far as winners go. But it was, I guess, better than expected. All right, we got about 3 minutes left here on this. I believe it's episode 51. I lost track, but I went back and kind of counted, and I don't know. We'll call it 51. Cody Rhodes asked for his release, was granted his release, and he put out a note basically saying that he was frustrated with creative, that he pitched a couple ideas, and he wasn't getting any kind of responses. That's pretty unfortunate. But he'll do better, I believe, elsewhere. Maybe he'll go to TNA or Ring of Honor or something. They'll do something cool with him.
I think Japan would be the best place for him.
Yeah, Japan's a good one too. Definitely sucks to see Cody Rhodes go. But that moves us into the more drama of, or even more of a dramatic story of Adam Rose. Not as big of a star as someone like Cody Rhodes, but he was popped for failing the wellness test, whether that was for a legitimate reason or not, who knows. Then he gets arrested for tampering with a witness or something like that, and domestic battery, and now he's released by the WWE. The downward spiral continues. Oh man, it really sucks. I feel bad for him. I feel like it's slipping away. And I don't know him personally. We've talked to him a couple times.
Yeah. It does feel like he's on this downward spiral, and obviously, these are real people at the end of the day.
Yep.
It just felt like this kind of separation was inevitable. I mean, I think we're a bit surprised it took this long.
Yep.
We'd have to guess the next release we'll hear from next is Ryback.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's still hanging in there. But, you're right about it probably being needed for Adam Rose. Being in the spotlight of any kind is not good for what he's going through, and maybe this way people will leave him alone a little bit, and he can work through his issues. But yeah, Ryback is probably next. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't happen before the end of this week. But well, man, we're down to less than 30 seconds. So that's going to wrap up this edition of Wrestling Obsession Radio. If you like the show, go to iTunes and leave a review for us, and tell your friends about the show. We'll be back sometime this week with a Raw review, and probably after Ryback gets released. So subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Follow me on Twitter @WresObsess. And remember, as always, Brett screwed Brett.